What's going on, folks? Today we're going to repot some pups from a bromeliad. We're going to separate the pups and put them in these little terracotta pots. And so I'll take those inside, get them warmed up, and we will head inside and get started on this because it is way too cold to work on any of these plants out here today. Alright folks, we're back in the plant room now. We've got our bromeliad here, and we're ready to take some of these offsets and repot them into new pots. So what we're going to do first is okay, so you know what, let's start with talking about the bromeliad. What's the bromeliad? What is this? What's going on? Alright, I got this bromeliad I believe last year, the beginning of last winter. It was on the discount shelf at the grocery store. The flower was a little beat up, but it was still alive, and it didn't have any pups on it. Now these pups are also called offsets, and these are how you propagate the bromeliad. So there are seeds that you can do it with. That's a lot longer and more involved process. So using the pups, you're going to have, like in this case I have 5 pups on this, so I'll have 5 new plants. Now the bromeliad is monocarpic, and what that means is it flowers once during its life cycle. So this plant, this flower is dead now. It's all dried up. It was yellow and red for the majority of the time I had it. It had its flowers for at least, gosh, 6 months. So as far as care for this goes, I have been using distilled water up until about a month and a half ago when I ran out of distilled water. I haven't picked any new up. The only reason I was using distilled water was because I didn't want to get like the hard water stains all over, because when you water these, there's cups inside of here that you pour the water into. I mean, it also take water up through its roots, but a lot of that is taken in through the foliage. It flowers once during its life, and after it flowers, like a lot of epiphytes, it will produce offsets. So just like Tillandsia or an air plant, that will also, most of those will flower once. And once they've done that, then they might produce some pups as well during their life cycle. Those are also epiphytes. Plants like orchids are epiphytes, so all of these are actually in that same epiphyte family, which means they live on other plants or trees or rocks, things like that. Now, I believe this bromeliad is in the family Vriesea. It's I think what they call the sword plant or the flaming sword plant, and the flower never opened. Like you'll see some bromeliads have large open flowers. This one just had the tall, kind of tight spike, very colorful, yellow and red. But the ones that open up, kind of like, if you've seen like Star Trek, a lot of times you'll see these plants in the crew quarters because they do have a really interesting look. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to try, and I'll cut this flower off. I mean, we don't need that anymore. That's not going to do anything else. I am also going to remove these pups, but I'm going to try and leave the mother plant alive, see if she'll produce some more offsets for us. So bromeliads, like most epiphytes, like orchids and air plants, they need indirect, bright light, good airflow. That's a requirement, and if you give them that, they pretty much have everything they need. I've never used any fertilizer on this. I still have it in the soil that it came in, and it looks like pretty much like a peat moss. Oh, so as you can see, there's some roots in the bottom coming out, so it does root in there. I'm gonna put these pups, I'm going to leave the mother in this, and I'm going to put the pups in these small terracotta pots. I got my pots here that I'm going to put the pups in, and we got our plant, and we got our tools. So I'm going to pull this out of the pot and see what the roots look like. So let's get started. Let's see so this is pretty much in straight peat moss, it looks like. And the roots look pretty healthy. Yeah, I think that's done pretty well for them. piece of a planter in there. Huh. Alright. Alright, so to remove these, I'm going to go around. These are the pups here. So I'm going to try and pull these off. I'm going to remove the lower leaf here. Let's see. So I'm going to pull out a little blade here and try and just slice where just right where it was holding. That's not great. So I got a few roots with it. And like I said, you don't actually necessarily need roots, so I'm not too worried about it. I think that it's going to be okay. You can see there's a couple of small roots there. Alright, so pup number 2, I'll try and give you a better angle on it this time. So I'm just going to remove these lower leaves. See, so the roots are kind of tight in here. So I'm going to see if I can loosen it up with a chopstick a little bit. But geez. Oh wow. Alright, so I got some more roots with that. So, decent. Yeah, I forgot to mention, they say it should be a half to like 3/4 of the size of the mother, just to give them the best chance. They should already have like a reservoir you can fill. Got quite a bit with that one. I think the farther I get along, the more this root ball is loosening up, and that's why they're kind of getting easier here. Just a few roots with that one. And some decent roots with that one, and you can see that it's looking like a nice plant. Alright, so moving along here, I am going to try and reuse some of this original soil. You know, why not? The plant did great in it up till now. I am going to put some of the medium that I'm going to use for the pups in here. Now these, like I said, they're epiphytes, so just like orchids and tillandsias, they don't like to stay wet, so you need to use something really airy. I am just using peat moss, like 50-50 peat moss and perlite here, because that's what I got right now. They say to use orchid bark, essentially, because it is an epiphyte, you know, it grows on the bark of other plants. So now I'm not going to do that. So I'm just going to use what I've got and call it good. So there we've got the mother plant. We'll see if any more pups happen on this thing. Hopefully they will. So I guess while I have this down here, I'm going to remove this flower spike. So there's the flower spike. So it's got a tiny little root, but I am gonna get that in there as best I can, get that covered up, try and center this. And then just fill it in, and fill it in deep enough because the pups will grow up higher on it a little bit, so it can be a little bit on the ground, enough to hold it up. When I say in the ground, I mean like under the surface of the soil. Now I got them in there, but I want to just place some rocks there just to hold it in place while it's getting started. So we got some medium worked in here. Here's one with the nicer roots. There's a dead leaf there. So I'm just gonna stick it down in there, get the roots in there, and backfill it with some nice light growing medium here. Number 3. This guy's got some nicer roots. Barely opened up on the cone though, so it's going to be hard to water. I'm going to try and leave these roots intact as much as possible. Looks like it's... Alright, what is this? Number 4? Wow, we're moving right along. This one also has a little bit of roots left on it. You can see how this is a little chunk of bark, and the roots have just attached right to it. And that's, you know, typical for epiphytes to try and attach like that. You'll see the orchids get mounted on a piece of bark, and it gives it a really cool look, and it's more of a kind of a natural growing behavior for it. Alright, here's number 5. Good, this one's pretty well opened up. This one also has the least amount of roots. Alright, that's number 5. So we're all planted up. I'm going to get this cleaned up and put these guys... I think I'm going to put them in the window back here. We'll see. Let's see if they fit. Hold on. My oxalis has been blooming constantly since it's been brought inside, so it's just those little succulent cuttings and oxalis flowers. But I think these bromeliads are really going to love this spot, and they should do great. Everything's looking great, and we got those all potted up. I'm glad that I finally got that done. I'm happy with the way they turned out. I'll give you an update on these guys when the time comes. But until that time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.